Welcome back to the Dan Bradbury podcast, and I'm excited for you to have the final part in the trilogy from Keith J. Cunningham to make 2024 your best year in business ever. When you talk about the three things, difference between operating and owning, you spoke about leverage. And this is a little bit of a tenuous segue, but I'm curious. I found out about you via Tony Robbins. So when you embarked and decided to become a teacher, and you wanted to share your message, I'm sure that working with Tony, or your relationship, your partnership with Tony, whatever form or word you use, gave you significant leverage because it got you out to more people. And ultimately, I saw you with Tony in, I think it was 2007, and that was one event. And I jumped on board the Keys to the Vault bandwagon, and I've been a raving fan ever since. How did your relationship with Tony start? What was the genesis of that relationship?
Tony has been a great resource partner. He's not a partner, but we've worked together for, I think, 22 years now. So the genesis, a real quick story, was that in 2001, I think, I get a call from a seminar promoter. This is somebody that promotes seminars around the world, and I had never done any public speaking in a seminar at all. I was just barely kind of dancing a little with this whole idea of doing any teaching. And anyway, this guy knew of me, and he called and said, would you be interested in coming to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur and speaking two speeches? You're part of a group of presenters, and your subject would be on raising money, and you'd have about an hour of time, and we would pay for your flight for you to come, and hotels, etc. Would you be interested in doing that? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I would. I said, when is it? He said, 2 weeks. I said, who canceled? I mean, you don't wait 2 weeks and decide you want to add somebody to the stage to 7,000 people. And he said, everybody. I said, what do you mean everybody canceled? And he said, it's SARS. It was in the middle of SARS, and in Indonesia, that part of the world, everybody had on a mask, and all of the U.S. speakers who were supposed to come canceled because they didn't want to get exposed to SARS. So I went to Sandy, my wife, and said, yeah, look, Richard wants us to come and do this event in Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. I said, I'm inclined to go. And she said, yeah, let's do that. So we flew over. I gave a speech in Singapore. I gave a speech in Kuala Lumpur, 7,000 people in both of them. Of course, I was scared. I'm always nervous before I do that. But I was just starting, and I was really nervous. And a guy came up to me at the end of my speech in Kuala Lumpur, and he said, I'd like to meet with you. Now, you know, Dan, you know this, that after a speech, there's a lot of people crowding around, and, you know, they want to talk to you. And so I said to this guy who wanted to meet, I said, yeah, give your card to my people, and my people will reach out to your people. And this guy said, don't do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to blow me off. I said, all right, tell me why. He's standing right in front of me. He said, because I'm Tony Robbins' promoter in Australia, and we'd like to have you come to a business mastery. And actually, it was a wealth mastery at that time. And I said, well, that's cool. I said, when is that? He said, next month. I said, all right, well, I'll do that. And so I went, I did a same presentation at a wealth mastery, one of Tony's events. And I think that we have spoken at every business event that Tony has had since then. He has 3 or 4, or 5 a year, uh, uh, three a year business events, and we speak at every one. And as a result of that relationship and people, seeing me, getting a little appetizer, a taste, then there's people like you that call and say, "What else do you know?" And so we'd like to deepen and continue the relationship. And so that happens, with a lot of places we go to speak. And now the whole teaching, speaking thing is taken on a life of its own. I never really intended for it to be a business. I intended for it to be something entirely different. There's a great distinction I made, Dan, and the distinction is success is getting what you want. Fulfillment is giving what you got. And I've been very fortunate in my business career and have success. That part is handled. And about 20 plus years ago, there's something I tell people that may resonate, and it's this: more is more, better is better. Sometimes more is better. When more stops being better, it's enough. And I was in a situation where it was enough, and I wanted fulfillment. And so the last 20 years has migrated more and more towards how do I achieve the other part. Success is handled. Fulfillment is giving what I got, and it's the teaching. So that's a brief little history of how this whole thing got started. When I talk about leverage, certainly there is strategic alliance leverage. That is a form of leverage, and some people are missing that, and that can be a huge accelerator to growth. But the more common kind of leverage that I'm referring to is the leverage that you get from the people on your team. And more often than not, it's that weakness of the people that are on the team, or our tolerating their weakness, or our unwillingness to institutionalize a training program. For the life of me, I don't understand why CEOs don't prioritize the training and retraining training is 4 things. Training is the curriculum, it's repetition, it's practice, and it's accountability. Those are the 4 parts of training. Training is the curriculum, it's repetition, it's practice, and it's accountability. And most CEOs don't prioritize training as an integral part of their plan, and then they wonder why they get inconsistent or crappy results. Tiger Woods, probably one of the greatest golfers to ever live. Tiger Woods, before he goes to play golf, will go to the practice green and put 3 balls down and practice making putts from 3 feet. From 3 feet. It's the simplest, easiest shot on the golf course. And yet Tiger will spend more time hitting 3-foot putts than he does drivers. He's won more trophies and championships and money and success and fame and yet he still practices 3-foot putts. Wouldn't you think, after all that success, he'd say to himself, okay, no need to go practice 3-foot putt. I kind of got that one. No. He goes and does 3-foot putts every time. The question for CEOs is, what is your team practicing? Where's the training? Where's the repetition? We think exposure is the same as training. Exposure is not training. Exposure is repetition, repetition, repetition. 3-foot putts, 3-foot putts, 3-foot putts. Practice. Own it. Own it. I think there's a huge opportunity with our team and the leverage that we'd like to have in order to achieve the results we want. And more often than not, the leverage that's missing is A players. That's the truth. A players and a great culture.
Yeah, people and culture. It's well, I go back to the Charlie Munger quote. It's not supposed to be easy. But let me ask this, Keith. Maybe this is relative to people and culture, or maybe it's broader than that. But if you could rewind the clock and give some principles to the younger Keith, say from some 30 years ago, so i.e. concepts, not what stock to buy. You know, if you could go back in time and speak to the younger you, what would the top 3 principles or key pieces of advice, what would you give?
For sure, one of them would be face reality. I probably am like most people in that I tend to be a little glossy sometimes with the reality of either my situation or my resources or my skill sets. I have allowed wishful thinking to get in the way too many times. So that would be certainly on the list. I think that probably my ego has been a saboteur on occasions where I wanted to be I wanted to be seen or noticed. I wanted this success, and as a result, when my ego got in the way, it's really hard to hear. It's hard to listen. It's hard for people around you to be generous with their advice or their helping you with blind spots. I think that would be one. My ego is healthy, and keeping it in check is, well, my ego borders on obese sometimes, but keeping it in check and making sure that the truth is, I think it's really difficult to learn without humility. And humility is kind of the opposite of how most of us show up. Certainly it's the opposite of how I show up sometimes. So I think being humble, or having humility, being willing to admit mistakes, or listen to other people, because other people are smart. Other people can see blind spots. I think the person with the fewest blind spots always wins.
Mm.
And so having someone help me with blind spots is really hard if my ego is left unchecked. I think a piece of advice, maybe the third one, would be, kind of goes back to a quote. Years and years ago, I had a very large dumb tax, huge dumb tax, lost a tremendous amount of money. Not only was it a tremendous amount of money, it was all my money. So I had to start over. And I had a very wise guide during that time. I wouldn't call him a mentor. He was more of somebody to help me with my psychology, and this guy said to me, he said, Keith, hell on earth would be to meet the man you could have been. And that resonated with me, and has resonated with me for the last 35 or 40 years. I heard it when I was at my lowest point, and it's still something that it resonates with me today. This idea that meeting the man I could have been, I want to be able to meet that guy and say, I know you, because I am you.
Mm.
I am the man I could have been. And I think that is playing at a level of mastery. I'm still working on this, by the way. I'm not there yet. But it's the journey that I'm on. It's the path that I'm on. And that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes or screw things up. It just means my intention is to become the best that I can be. And more often than not, that requires me to get out of my own way, and it requires me to listen to other people. I think that's the value of having a board. It's the value of being in a study group. It's the value of surrounding yourself with people who want more. And my experience is people that, we've all heard the statistic, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I want to spend time with people who are on a journey to be the best they can be, who aren't going through the motions. I've said for a long, long time that if I had the opportunity for one last breath, one last thought, and then I died. I had the opportunity for one last thought in my last breath. What do I want that last thought to be? And it's how I'm trying to build my life. I want that last thought to be, whoa, that was spectacular. This is my life, and I'm proud of it. And I would gladly live it again if only given the opportunity. Whoa.
Keith, that was beautiful, and I want to be respectful of your time. You've already been generous, and we've gone over, and that's probably a perfect point to wrap up. Is there anything, Keith, that you would like to add? Obviously, I recommend strongly people get not just The Road Less Stupid, all your books. We haven't mentioned Keys to the Vault, which was your first book, The Ultimate Blueprints. Check you out at keystothevault.com. So I'm a strong advocate, Keith, for people getting in touch with you and getting more of your resources. Is there any final thought, Keith, or kind of question you want to ask my audience to reflect on, or anything else you want to add to what's been a fantastic conversation?
Well, Dan, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Certainly if people want more, a great way to do that is visiting our website. You've mentioned it, Keys to the Vault. I do teach courses, and one of them is the 4-day MBA. It's in a virtual training format, which makes it really easy, self-study kind of format. So, and other things that I do are available. Simply Keys to the Vault, and emailing us. Events at Keys to the Vault is a great way to access more if what I'm talking about resonates and you feel like there's more that you'd like to have. I'm really appreciative of you and your commitment to not only growth, but your commitment to teach other people what you know. I think the fastest path to mastery is to teach what you have learned. And when I see people that are actively wanting to not only learn, if you ask me to spell growth, I would spell it Learn. I am a learner. I hunger for more. And so the fact that you're part of that process, part of that journey with me, and the people that are studying with you are part of that journey, helps me with my journey of fulfillment. So thank you for the opportunity, Dan.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and that is the third and final part of the special mini series from Keith J. Cunningham on making 2024 your best year in business ever. I hope you enjoyed that episode. 3 things you need to do now. Number 1, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you do not miss an episode. Also, get on over to Amazon to get a copy of my latest book, Turnover is Vanity, Profit is Sanity, 9.5 steps to improving your profits and cash flow. Also, join our Facebook group, the Turnover is Vanity, Profit is Sanity community, to connect with other business owners.